Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Scots Scheme with Macalester College football coach Tony Jennison. The Scots Scheme is a weekly program that gives you, the fans, the opportunity to ask the Macalester coach questions about the Scots, football or sports in general, or just seek the coach's wisdom about life or whatever happens to be going on out there. This week, Coach Jennison talks to us about the exciting game last week against Beloit, where Zandy Stoll and Alec Beatty stole the show. He talks to us a little bit about what's going to go on with Lawrence University this weekend, and he discusses with us whether he was a ladies' man in high school or college. So let's get right to the Scots Scheme. So we want to welcome back Coach Jennison for this week. Coach, let's first of all begin with team updates and injuries with you.
There are no injuries. We're absolutely healthy. Parents, there's no need to worry. Your sons have 2 arms, they're healthy, and they're going to class constantly. That's it.
That's a good start. That's a great start.
And especially healthy are Alec Beatty, Jeremy Steffen, and Jack Strybeck. No worries. Everyone's healthy.
That's what we like to start with. So let's start with the Beloit game. You get a huge game out of Zandy Stoll. Is it safe to say that he's healthy now, or is he ready to kind of shoulder the load for your team now?
I certainly hope so. I think it was 31 carries, wasn't that right? 31 carries last weekend. So, that's something that we really don't want to do constantly. But he didn't want to come out of that game. We had asked him, and I know Coach Rosenberry, his position coach, really gives Zandy the freedom, being a senior, and I think Zandy's earned that to stay in if he wants to, and Zandy wanted to stay in like the last drive last weekend or second to last drive, whatever it was, and so we honored that and kept him in there. But I'd say he's fairly healthy. Obviously, with 31 carries, you get a little banged up. But there's no question that he's a difference maker, and he has the ability to carry this team, this offense. So we hope that's the case. I guess time will tell.
Jeremy Steffen has a really big role for you last week. Comes up with, I think, 84 yards he finished with. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like you've got yourself a pretty good 1-2 combination in the running game now?
I definitely do. And Jeremy, we knew that when we recruited him. He was one of our top recruits. We knew he was pretty special, not just as a football player, but him as a young man, the character that he has. He's been voted onto our leadership council here as a freshman. So we knew what we were getting, and we really wanted him for that. But to be honest with you, I don't think it's just a 1-2 combination. I think we've got other backs on our team that can do a lot of good things as well. You look at Jacob Jones, and every time Jacob's in there, he's running people over. And Ethan Carpenter's had success for us, and Brian Lynn had a great practice yesterday. So the running back position is the deepest position on our team and the most talented position on our team. And Matt Bonazzoli's getting healthy now. He's looked really good in practice. I don't think it's just a 1-2 punch. I think it can be more people. It's too bad. We might need to figure out how to put 3 or 4 running backs on the field at one time with the talent we have, but it's a good problem to have.
Benny Goldman really played well for you last week, just took what the defense was going to give to him. What was your overall assessment of his performance?
I thought he was outstanding. I think it's a sign of a very mature quarterback to not force the football, to throw it away when the play is not there, to miss in the right spots. The times that he did miss, he was putting it where only our guy was going to catch it or no one. And you mentioned it. He took what the defense gave him, and again, I just think that's a sign of a mature quarterback, and that's certainly what we expect out of a senior. So I was really pleased with Benny's performance. I was talking to him after practice last night, walking out of the locker room, and he mentioned that he didn't even break a sweat on Saturday. He just watched number 2 and from the backside getting all those yards, and watched Liam Peebles, number 45, knocking people out all over the place. He said it was pretty easy for him, but I was very pleased with his leadership and with how he handled the offense and how he led the offense. No question about it.
Alec Beatty with a fumble recovery and 2 interceptions. I would think at this point it's getting kind of difficult to choose. Is he going to be on the offense or defense for you?
Why do you have to choose? I don't think you have to choose. I truly want to see him continue to play a role on our team where He does come in at the quarterback position, and we can use him on defense. I ask Alec every week, do you still have gas in the tank? And he guarantees me that he does. So if he's willing to do it and he feels he's not wearing down, then he's so good of a football player, as you've seen now through 6 games or whatever it is for us, that we need to get him on the field as much as possible. So I really don't want to say that he's only going to play offense or defense. I want him on the field in a lot of different places. So I think that's the direction we're going to keep going until he tells us he can't handle it.
Zach Hauser has another huge day for you. Do you feel like this is really becoming his defense?
No question about it that Zach is doing very well. He's playing at a high level. I don't know that, defensively, I don't know you can say it's anyone's defense. I think offensively, oftentimes you say it's the quarterback's offense because so much runs through the quarterback. But defensively, that's hard to say because we have so many players playing at a high level. But it does start up front. There's no question about that. And Zach Hauser is the key to our defensive front. When you play a 3-4 defense like we do, you better be strong at the nose position, and thankfully we are very strong at that position. I think Zach is playing as well as any defensive lineman in the conference right now, and we certainly need that to continue because he's a force out there, and he makes other people look better because linebackers are running free because he's got 2 guys on him, and then when they do try to leave him and get up to the linebacker, then basically he makes a tackle for a loss. So he's playing at a very high level, and we need that to continue. And the good news about that is, I talked to him on yesterday, and he said on Sunday he felt the best he's felt all year after a game. So I think that he's been a little bit banged up this year too, and it seems like his body's pretty fresh right now, which is a really good sign because he's played a lot of downs lately.
Are there things that you took away from that game that you still felt you needed to work on?
Absolutely. We are not we're not perfect, and not that you'll ever be perfect, but I think to think that you don't have things to work on is pretty conceited, and that's just not who we are. The penalties, I'm still disappointed with the penalties because there's some mental mistakes with that. I'm disappointed in the fact that we lost the second half. We came out of halftime feeling really good about ourselves, but we lost the second half 14-7. And the message to the team has always been that the good teams play consistently throughout the course of the game for the entire 60 minutes. It doesn't matter what the score is. It doesn't matter what the game situation is. You play consistently, and I don't think we played poorly in the second half, but I certainly felt like we should have won the second half, and we didn't do that. So there are things that we can improve on, and the good part about it is I really believe that our team is working on those things and working hard to continue to get better.
You take on Lawrence this week. They come in 1-4, but have really played pretty well in the conference itself. So what are some keys, do you think, against playing against them?
Well, certainly when you're playing on the road, that's always a challenge for us and for any team in the Midwest Conference because it's hard to win on the road. I've heard their setting. I've never been to their setting. I think it's the Banta Bowl. I don't think so. I'm sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but they've got a new turf field there. It seems like they've always got fans in the stands from the video you watch because the fans are always in the way of the video, which is kind of funny. So playing on the road in a travel game is always challenging, but offensively they're doing some unique things. They've got a new coaching staff this year, a new offensive coordinator who brings the fly offense or whatever you want to call it, from the West Coast where there's a lot of motioning and they're giving receivers the ball and trying to hit the edge, and then they're faking it and running it up the middle, and they're passing off that stuff. So it's a very deceptive offense, and it poses some problems just because you're not always sure where the ball's at. So certainly those are the challenges for us, but that's our defense has been working hard this week to make sure that we're sound, and we expect to play at a high level. That's what we expect every week.
Speaking of the coaching staff, you actually worked with Coach McCarthy before, so is there some patterns or some things about him that you think you could gain from your previous experience?
I'd love to tell you, yes, that I know everything about him and what he's going to bring, and we've got him all dialed up, but the honest answer is Rob and I worked together back in 1998, which is a few years ago now. It was my first year out of lacrosse. I think it was his first or second year. Well, no, he had been out a couple years, but it was his first year. I think it was his first year at Eau Claire at that time, and we were both essentially graduate assistants together. So, we didn't have a whole lot of say in what defense we were going to run or what the schemes would be like or anything like that. I know who he is as a person, and I've heard about some of his schemes that we've used, but honestly, I've never coached against him before. Just spent that year with him, and we were pretty close. We had a lot of classes together and stuff like that. I know he's a great person. I know that I'm pretty confident his teams are going to play hard and they're going to be well disciplined and they're going to be sound in their schemes. But other than that, I'd like to tell you, I can tell you everything they're going to dial up because I know Rob from the past, but that would be a lie.
They have several different players on their team that will carry the ball, 2 different quarterbacks that they use on a regular basis. Does this pose an additional challenge to you?
I think it does. Again, that deception of not knowing who's got the ball with their motions and stuff like that is challenging. When they do rotate quarterbacks, it's just more work for you because as a coordinator or someone who's trying to figure out their offense, you start thinking about, okay, these are the things they're doing with one quarterback, these are the things they're doing with the other quarterback, and it's basically at times if there's big differences, then it's like preparing for 2 different games, 2 different schemes. So yes, it can be a challenge that way, but that's the way it goes. I mean, it's kind of like that each week for a lot of games. So can't complain about it. Just got to get it done.
Lawrence has had struggles trying to stop opposing teams from running against them without obviously giving away your game plan at this point. Is that become a focus for you guys, or do you just try to still stay balanced regardless?
Well, we always want to be balanced in terms of the offense, but I think that we've always been a team that's really prided itself on running the football. I was very proud. I can't remember when it was, 5 or 6 years ago, we broke records for most points and most yards in a season, and we were one of very few teams nationally that year to average 200 yards passing, which wasn't unique, but we also averaged 200 yards rushing. And when we broke records a couple years after that again, we averaged 190 yards rushing and a few more passing. But we've always been able to run the football pretty well, and I think that starts up front with the offensive line. I think we've had good offensive linemen in here. I think they're well coached by Mark Davies originally, and then now by Hal Reeser, and certainly Mark as offensive coordinator always is clued into what's going on up front. But we do take great pride in how we're able to run the football, and I think that opens up things in the passing game with your play action, and certainly if defenses, which tend to be the case, they'll bring a safety down, try to get them in the box to help out in the run game. Well, obviously it opens up some passing game options later. So we definitely want to run the football. I don't think that's giving away a game plan. I think people know that about us. No matter who the opponent is, we're going to do our best to run the football. Again, I think we've proven that over the years.
Heading to our fan questions this week, Jerry from Mounds View asked, Mac has had a lot of great running backs come out of Chippewa Falls High School. Do you think it's something in the water or something in the breakfast cereal down there?
I think it's something in the Leinenkugels myself, whether it's a summer shandy or a honey vice. I think when you maybe when you have enough of those, you start seeing the light and knowing that Macalester is what you need. But we have had some great backs with T.J. Loisel, Mike Adams, and now Zandy. The cool part about those 3 is they all wore number 2 at Chippewa Falls. They were all very good running backs. But really, I think what it is we've been fortunate to get to know Coach Rakovich over there pretty well, and he's trusted us enough to let us into school to meet with those young men, and they've come to Macalester and had very successful careers. But the bottom line is Chippewa Falls, when you play in that football program, you're going to be tough, and you're going to be physical, and you're going to be passionate about football. And I think that's it's a sign of a really good high school football program. And again, Coach Rakovich does a really good job over there, and we've been fortunate to have 3 great running backs. And the cool part about it is they all have set records here. Tidro Loisel is the all-time leading rusher here at Macalester in the school's history. Mike Adams set a single-season rushing record for most yards per carry. I can't remember what it is. If it was like 6 yards, maybe 7 yards per carry, something like that in a season. And Zandy last year set a single-season rushing record with 1,293 yards or whatever it was. So it's pretty neat that those three all wore number 2 at Chippewa Falls consecutively, and then they all came to Macalester and they've all set records. It's a pretty unique story.
I would think a running back at Chippewa Falls should know if they want to have success that this should be the spot to come to at this point.
That's what I would say too.
Barry from Richfield asks, the Fighting Scots have had a strong running attack. I often see that defensive coaches want a running game to be the focus of their offense and not as much a passing attack. Do you find that is true in your own case?
Maybe. I am a defensive coach at heart. I was a defensive coordinator. I played defensively in college and started off as I was a defensive coach and then a defensive coordinator. So I do believe in running the football. I think it's just been, again, who we are, and the offensive coordinators we've had here have also believed in that. Dan Larson in the early years, and now Mark Davies have always done a great job of, again, coaching the offensive line and really having pride in being able to run the football. And certainly that's who we've become as a program, and I don't think it's going to stop. I think of the recruits that come watch us play nowadays, and they love the fact that we run the football, and so some of them want to come to school here because if you're an offensive lineman or a running back, that this is going to be a program that really emphasizes running the football and pounding it like that, and doing it, trying to do it against anyone. And we certainly have pride in that here, and it's become who we are.
Steve from St. Paul wonders, over the last 6 seasons, you've had winning years in even-numbered seasons and losing seasons in odd-numbered ones. Can the pattern be broken this year?
I certainly hope so. It's funny because we've talked about that as a staff before, and we've tried to figure out the reasons why, and I'm not really sure there's an easy answer for that, but it's definitely something that's definitely a pattern that we want to be broken this year. We're going to need to play better, and we've got really the toughest stretch of our schedule coming up here. So hopefully we're prepared for that, and hopefully we can break that pattern. I know that the team's going to be working hard to do that.
James from Wisconsin asked, he had read the article on the site about Coach Dewar, and a lot of people were very critical of the job that he's doing at the school this year.
Really?
Do you think that's justified?
Not at all. I think he is outstanding. In fact, I voted for him for Conference Coach of the Year last year because I thought they had 30 players on the team last year, and we could have very easily lost to Beloit last year. Could have happened this year too. I just think that they play hard. They're very sound in what they do, and he's done a really good job in terms of recruiting in 1 year, doubling the size of the roster. I think he's spectacular. I actually had the thought this week that I would love to coach with him at some day. So yes, people in Beloit, please fire Coach Dewar, and we'll find a spot for him here because I would love to work with him.
Marvin in Buffalo asks, is it hard coaching against guys that you coached with and are friends with?
No. I think it's kind of interesting when you coach against people that you have a history with. I enjoy that. I can't say that it happens all that often. We're going to have the coming up the next 3 weeks. I'll coach against Rob, which will be an interesting thing. And then at St. Norbert, I worked with Dan McCarty in the past as well, and that'll be fun. But no, I don't think it's hard at all. It's you want to respect the game of football by playing hard, playing tough, and playing physical. But after the game, you're going to shake somebody's hand, look them in the eye, win or lose, and say congratulations on a great game. Hope you're healthy, all that good stuff. And hopefully you're a man that when you win, you're a little bit humble about it, and when you lose, you can appreciate the competition involved and congratulate the other team. So I don't think it's hard at all.
Kyle from Farmington asks, what are some tips you would give to improve a person's skills at defensive back?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm probably the wrong guy to ask because I was not the most talented person out there. I would say what tips you to improve as a defensive back, come to Macalester. Our coaching staff is unbelievable. You think about, Coach Mullenbach, who's our defensive coordinator, played defensive back, and then our two defensive back coaches are phenomenal. Blaine Coonsey was an All-American safety here at Macalester, and he is the best teacher of technique that I've ever been around. And Sean McMore played Division I football at Northern Iowa. He played for the Vikings for a little bit. He coaches our corners. So you want to get good at playing defensive back, come to Macalester and play for the Fighting Scots. Other than that, I would say play other sports. Defensive back it's about athleticism. It's about reacting in space, and I think the more you compete at other sports, whether it be basketball or baseball or track or soccer or whatever, I think it's only going to help develop those skills that you use as a defensive back. And certainly you can go to camps and get other coaching and whatnot, but I would say play other sports, have fun, and to me that would be the big thing.
Mitch from St. Paul asks he says he's curious what you think about the rule that college players have to be out of high school for 2 years before they can enter the NFL. Do you think that is fair and the right thing to do?
Oh, I don't know. I don't get involved I don't think about that stuff very much. I certainly don't think that someone who's out of high school for only 2 years oftentimes is going to be ready emotionally or physically to play at the level of the NFL, or even just go into a locker room with men who are much older, some of them having children and being in marriages. I think emotionally that would be hard for someone who's 20 years old or 19 years old. So I would lean more towards the side of keeping these guys in school and letting them get a college degree before even coming out for the NFL. So no, I'm not a proponent of getting people early into professional leagues, but again, I don't really tend to pay much attention to that either.
Lisa from St. Paul wonders from you, today is, though she knows the show is recorded on Wednesdays, and this Wednesday, today, is Back to the Future Day.
Oh.
If you could go back in time and give advice to a young Tony Jennison, what would it be?
Wow, that's an interesting one. I don't know. My wife and I often talk about how we didn't enjoy college as much as we should. We studied hard. We were very serious about things, which is great. I think it helped us, be successful. But at the same time, I wish I would have enjoyed the journey a little bit more. You try to tell yourself that as a coach. Also, enjoy the ride of the season because you're working so much and you're stressed out, and sometimes it's hard to just take a step back and say, it's a pretty special place to be in terms of a high-ranking academic institution where you work with really great young men who come from exceptional families. And, so I often think that I want to enjoy the ride a little bit more than I sometimes do. So I think that's, I guess, what I would say if I could go back. I don't know. That's a hard one.
Our last question for this week comes from Mike from St. Paul, who wonders, if you were a ladies' man in high school and in college, and if so, what was your best line you used?
Oh, my Lord. Mike in St. Paul, huh? Again, Rob, I do not believe that there's a Mike in St. Paul that would be interested in this. I think you're making up these questions. But I was not a ladies' man. My friends would tell you that, unfortunately. And I didn't have any lines. I think that I was going to respect people and just talk to them and talk to them as a human being, not come up with something trying to clever to impress them. So sorry, you're talking to the wrong guy with that stuff. I'm pretty boring. But anyway, that's the truth.
Thanks for joining us this week.
Thanks, Rob. Take care.
We want to thank Coach Jennison for joining us on the Scots Game this week. If you have your own questions you'd like to ask the Macalester College coach, please send them to us at Tony Jennison at minorleaguesportsreport.com. That's Tony Jennison at minorleaguesportsreport.com. Please have your questions to us by Tuesday afternoon so that we can give the coach a little bit of time to review them before we record the show on Wednesday afternoon. We look forward to your questions each week, and let's keep them coming because the coach is doubting that you're giving them to us. So let's keep them firing in there. We hope you enjoyed this week's program. I'm Rob Paneer, the managing editor of the Minor League Sports Report, and we're going to see you next week on the Scots Scheme.